الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. من بعد فإن أحسن الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. جزاكم الله خير, my dear respect brothers and sisters. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase our knowledge and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this for his sake, and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to surround us with his angels. We were talking about last week about the disease or the attraction that happened between the opposite genders, and we said this is part of human nature. And today we're going to be talking about the disastrous aftermath or after effect consequences that could, why extreme love, or here we're talking about love that is beyond the norms, and especially in haram situations. Islam, brothers and sisters, does not forbid someone from loving the opposite gender, especially if it's in the state of halal. But sometimes when someone in the state of ishq, or we call it in Arabic, we call it extreme love, ishq, in which that is something is beyond love, in which that someone is so much in love that it occupies his life. When someone is in that state where he is in love because of he had a fiance, or he loves someone from the street, or he is attached to women, whether through pictures or etc., it becomes an illness. It becomes an illness, and this illness, if someone is inflicted with it, it becomes a disease. It could destroy your life, and you would have to fight against it. Ibn al-Qayyim, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with him, he said وَدَوَاءُ هَذَا الدَّاءِ الْقِتَالِ. If someone is inflicted with disease of lust, or he loves to look at women in pictures, or on screens, or on TV, he said this type of illness, it requires fighting. You have to fight your desires against it, because there's something that could destroy your life, and it also something that you would have to push, and you have to struggle with internally and externally. How? Internally by going back to Rabbil Alameen and seeking tawbah, and externally by trying to make as much good deeds as possible, so that it could undo the problem that you are in. And because thing is here, brothers and sisters, you would have to keep yourself busy. Keep yourself busy, internally and externally. Internally, by, like I said, by whether it was trying to make your heart more connected with Rabbil Alameen, by making dhikr, by reading Quran, by listening to lectures, or externally by making good by doing things that are of benefits, by praying, by making dua, by associating with good people, and etc. And Ibn al-Qayyim said وَيَكْثُرُ اللَّجْءُ وَالتَّضَرُّعُ إِلَى اللَّهِ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى. And then you have to increase the amount of going back and asking and begging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you. Because, brother and sister, this illness, for those who do not know, it's an illness that could destroy someone's life. And it's a true addiction. Nowadays, like for instance, whether you see people, for instance, people who are addicted to والعياذ بالله, naked pictures or pornography, or people are addicted to, or when someone is in love with a woman who is who is not halal on him, it could occupy his life and it could destroy him. And he said وليس له من الدواء الأنفع من الإخلاص لله تعالى. He said there is no cure better than being sincere to Rabbil Alameen. What does that mean? Meaning that you go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask him. He said, Ya Rabbi, help me. Oh Allah, I am between your hands. Oh Allah, if you don't help me, no one can help me. So you would go and then release your stress to Rabbil Alameen, tell him, Ya Rabbi, I need your help. And you do that in early stages, because at later stages, when people are so much when this illness becomes so deep inside of your heart, you would not even have the mindset to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It occupies your feelings, it occupies your mind, it occupies your heart, to the point that you would know the right from the wrong. And that's why you have to seek assistance and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help. And that's the whole point of that going back to Rabbil Alameen. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. يا ربنا we seek your assistance. And that's what Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam did. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, كذلك لنصرف عنه السوء والفحشاء إنه من عبادنا المخلصين. and therefore we have لنصرف عنه, we moved away from him evil and fahsha, and these kinds of illnesses. إنه, why? Because he was a mukhlas. He was a person who was sincere to Rabbil Alameen. Because he was sincere, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala moved away these things away from him. So that's the point, brothers and sisters. You have to have, and even though that you could be inflicted with this kind of disease, but when somebody is inflicted with this kind of disease, you have to learn how to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because if the heart becomes sincere to Rabbil Alameen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would aid him and help him and protect him and get him out of this mess. But the more your heart is filled with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the less likely this kind of illness can occupy your heart, because your heart is already filled with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the question here, brothers and sisters, we talked about this before, that when somebody is faced with a situation, always have to evaluate. He always have to evaluate himself. Is this something good or bad for me? And when it comes to, for instance, this kind of ishq or this kind of extreme love, you have to examine yourself. Sit with yourself, and ask yourself how much goodness I'm getting out of this, and how much evil I'm getting out of this. And as Ibn al-Qayyim, he said, وَمِنَ الْمَعْلُومِ أَنَّ لَيْسَ فِي الْعِشْقِ صُوَرُ الْمَصْلَحَةِ الدِّينِيَّةِ وَلَا الدُّنْيَوِيَّةِ. He said, from what is known, when someone in this type of extreme love, no good could come out of it, whether for the deen or whether for the dunya. You're not going to get any benefit, whether it comes to your religion nor your worldly matters. Why? And he lists to us 8 sort of things, all sort of things that could, how this extreme love can destroy your life. He said, first one, الانشغال بحب المخلوق وذكره عن حب رب تبارك وتعالى. He said the very important consequences of someone who is in this type of extreme love, he is always busy with the love of that individual, to the point he would neglect the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As we talked about this before, ومن الناس من يتخذ من دون الله أندادا يحبونهم كحب الله والذين آمنوا أشد حبا لله. You see, some people are in love with certain things, and their love exceeds of these things exceed the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the true believers, they love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more. So the point here is that when someone becomes so much addicted to this kind of individual, addicted to this kind of love, what happened? You'll see him, all he's thinking about is what? This guy, and he would what? Neglect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or his love, and that's one of the greatest disasters. Secondly, عذاب قلبه بمعشوقه. He'll be tortured. Don't think, love is fantasy, love and nice and harmony, and no, it's a punishment. Wallah al-azim. It's a true punishment. And people who are in this type of extreme love, they feel they're being punished, because everything is in his life is surrounded by this. When he's away, he feels sad. When he's close, he feels sad. Why he feels sad when he's close to him? Because he's so, his heart is boiling of how to satisfy him. So he's always in a state of instability, whether he's with him or whether he's far away from him. So that's, again, the second thing is the fact that he's being punished. He's being tortured by this love continuously. Third thing, as Ibn al-Qayyim has said, إن العاشق قلبه أسير في قبضة معشوقه. That the person who's in love, he is like a slave in the hand of the person he loves. And here, brothers and sisters, one of the most honorable things that anybody has is his dignity. Your dignity. Does anybody like to be humiliated? Does anybody like to be for anyone to smudge their face in mud? Submerge their face in mud? No one. This is part of any dignified human being. He would not want to be humiliated. But what happened is, when someone is inflicted with this type of illness, what happens? All the time, they are like a slave. Literally, if their lover would ask them to do 20 jumping jacks, he would do it. If their lover told them to throw themselves out of the window, they would do it. I'm not kidding. I mean, they're in such in a state of extreme love that they're not even using their brain, and to the point that they're becoming slave. يعني ابن القيم he gave us كالعصفور في كف الطفل. Is it like imagine, when a bird is being held by a child, the child does not know. Sometimes he play with him this way or this way, and it might throw him. It might, imagine a small bird in the hands of a child. What do you think is going to happen? The child's going to play with him. They're going to throw him left and right, and that's the way it is when someone in this extreme state of love, he's being thrown around and played around and humiliated, and with the complete surrender of the other individual. Again, we are not against love. It's part of human nature for them to love their spouse, their يعني and etc. But even but a love that would become makes a person without the dignity, then this is humiliating. This is not love. Okay. The fourth thing he said, أنه يشتغل به عن مصالح دينه ودنياه. When this love becomes so much, it takes this individual away from whatever benefits he has from his deen and from his dunya. He does not know what is beneficial to him. And he says أما مصالح الدين يعني إنها شعث القلب. He said when it comes to the deen, how does it affect him in his deen? His heart becomes purely attached to this love, and he neglect everything else. He might see him uh, lazy about praying, lazy about making good deeds, lazy about making dhikr, lazy about his attachment to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he becomes, but why? Because his priorities now is not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the love of that individual. And even when it comes to the dunya, the dunya, what happened? When someone in this extreme state of love, he does not know what is right and what is wrong. For him to make a rational judgment about his worldly matters. So what happened? He become useless, and not taking it and make him lose all the benefits from his deen and his dunya. The fifth thing is إن من آفات الدنيا والآخرة أسرع إلى عشاق الصور من النار في اليابس الحطب. He said it becomes, when someone in this extreme state of love, what happened? He become in a state that always he become in a state where he's always in a state of evil, and he would not be able to get himself out of the state of evil. Why? Ibn al-Qayyim, he said, because لأن الشيطان يتولى, because the shaitan becomes the person who's in charge of him. When someone loses his mind and he's going after his shahawat, his desires, who do you think is going to be in control of him? The shaitan. The shaitan will be telling him, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that, follow this, don't follow this. And to the point that he would neglect his family, he would neglect his mother, he would neglect his father, and he might even neglect his children if he's married and he loves someone that is in the haram. He would neglect his family. He would neglect. He might even lose his money after, because of how neglectful he become. And that's exactly what we have seen with many people, throughout our lives. Okay, so he's always in a state of evil. 6. إذا تمكن من القلب واستحكم به أفسد الذهن وأحدث الوسواس. He become when this love becomes so in control of this individual brain, what happened? He said he would lose his sanity. He would not think straight. He said he will become like almost a person who's unstable, or somebody who is crazy. And not only that, he become أحدث الوسواس. He will become always anxious, always doubting himself, always second thinking about anything, any decision he would make. يعني as والعياذ بالله he become like an animal والعياذ بالله. As he become like an animal in which that he always and he does not think straight, and every time he makes a decision, oh, did I do this or did not do this, did I make this right, and he always doubting himself because what the waswas, and there is something in his brain always doubting himself or whatever everything he have done is right or wrong. Not only that, the seventh reason, أفسد الحواس أو بعضها. He might lose some of his يعني integral part of his senses, يعني, to the point that he would not يعني he would not even see things in front of him. And even the obvious senses he might lose because what? يعني he might his eyes might be open, his ears might be okay, but everything is surrounded, and everything that occupies his brain is how he could see that woman or how could he see that man. And it becomes really in control. Brothers and sisters, I'm not exaggerating. Some people who are in this extreme type of love, that's what happened to them. They, to the point that they would lose their senses, and yeah, and to the point he would not even be able to see what's good for him and what is bad for him. And if someone have advised him, he would not يعني, admit his faults, and he would not admit his faults. And that's the problem, brothers and sisters. And he would lose his Islam bit by bit to the point that he would lose his Islam eventually. يعني عمر الخطاب رضي الله عنه he said إنما تنقض عرى الإسلام عروة عروة. يعني how does some people leave Islam? Not all of a sudden like this, no, but once at a time, one thing at a time, one thing at a time. How? Because it becomes a gradual process, and that's what happened to him when he is in a state of love. He's losing his faith bit by bit. One time, يعني Ibn Abbas, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ibn Abbas, one time he saw a young man, and he used to know him. And then one time he saw this young man, very thin. And they say he was skin and bone. He said, so what is wrong with him? He said, bihi ishq. He is in a state of extreme love. He said, and then Ibn Abbas, he said, oh Allah, we seek refuge from you from this happening to us. Why? Because he knows how this can destroy someone's lives. The eighth one and the last one, إن العشق كما تقدم هو الإفراط في المحبة. يعني العشق, what is عشق? It's someone is in an extreme state of love. يستولي المعشوق على القلب العاشق حتى لا يخلو من تخليه وذكره وفكره بحيث لا يغيب عن خاطره ولا على ذهنه. It occupies, when someone in this extreme state of love, it occupies everything in his brain to the point what he would think about what his love. The ideas in his brain is about his lover. And nothing, everything, when he look at the TV, he may be looking, but he's thinking about the other person. So brothers and sisters, like I said, it's in complete control of your senses. So therefore, brothers and sisters, you have to understand that this does not happen all of a sudden. No, it becomes a gradual process. And the question here, brothers and sisters, is once you open the door for this, eventually it's going to reach that level. And that's why it's important that even when you are in a state of love, here we talk about halal love, that you gain control. There is a balance. You don't make these things get to you to the point that it would occupy your brain and lose your consciousness and lose your deen. You see, and this become even worse when someone in a state of love and he loves someone in haram. So this is something you have to. Ibn al-Qayyim, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him, he drew for us a picture of what's happened to this human being when he reached that state of love, and how could it destroy his life. And that's the warning signs that we have to think about. I hope that we got the message that Ibn al-Qayyim, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him, he tried to relay for us. If I said anything that is good, يزيد from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his prophet. Anything that is bad from myself and the shaitan. جزاكم الله خير لاستماعكم. سبحانك وبحمدك نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين يعملون الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. جزاكم الله خير، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.